Everybody does something different. There's not one guy in that room that's similar to another guy. And I think that's what makes, this so unique and special.
So this is the first time that we've been talking about the kind of offense you're very, very familiar with here in Seattle. So you know infinitely more about it.
Yeah.
What's it like transitioning from one to the other? Like what concepts, as limited as you can be,
it's a completely different scheme. Obviously when I was in Kansas City, we were a lot of 11 personnel, pushing the ball down the field, attacking different zones, and this system is marrying up the run and the pass. And, both systems work really well. I've been a part of some really great offenses in my career. But when you have, a run game that can match your pass game, it just makes it a lot easier to exploit defenses.
A lot of questions I get when I'm out with my boys and stuff, they're like, man, what do you think about Sam Darnold? I go, well, I know what the film says, but I don't know much about him. I'm not in the film room with him, not in the locker room with him. Like, what is he like as a person?
Yeah, so, obviously me and Sam were a part of the same draft class coming in here in 2018. And obviously he was a top pick for a reason. So the talent speaks for itself. And then, having to kind of figure his way out throughout the league, quarterback's one of the hardest positions to be successful at. If you have the wrong system or you have the wrong coaching staff or going to the wrong building, you can never be successful, especially at quarterback. And so he's been able to just be resilient and being able to get through these teams to find a home and showcase his ability.
I was joking with Bump earlier, who's a former wide receiver, about, divas. And maybe your most diva tendency. And we were having a hard time thinking of
someone texted in that said hats, and I probably am a diva
about it. Yeah. What's your most diva where you're like, look, I will not attach the diva label to wide receivers, but this is a little bit of a diva thing in me that I have?
I don't know, man.
Like a picky thing about something, or I have to have routes a certain way.
I mean, obviously every receiver wants the ball, so I haven't met one receiver in this world that doesn't want the ball. So I guess that would be the most diva thing about every receiver that plays this game. You don't want to run 60 routes and get one target. So I think that would probably be it.
That's been Bump defending the
most dependent position on the field.
Yeah.
We do rely on the linemen, QBs, receivers. He might jack them a space in. Like, we depend on a lot.
Well, and what happens if it's someone else's fault? Do you just... you can't say anything.
Nah, just do your job.
Everything has to go right for a receiver to get the ball.
Yep.
There's so many factors that go into it. You can run the best route of your life and wrong coverage. Quarterback got hit, we missed the read, or DB just played better, or now I still got to make the play. So there's 10 things that have to go right just for me to be successful on one play.
That's why we be tripping, right there.
It's hard.
Excusing this diva behavior.
Exactly. Were you always a receiver? Because most receivers think they can throw the football because obviously, we play catch and all that stuff. You play any other positions growing up?
Nah, I was always a receiver. Back in my little league days, I played a little bit of defense. But growing up, I was a tight end. My first couple of years playing football, and then started playing receiver when I got to high school. And I was actually a baseball player before I was a football player.
What do you think about this receiving core, man? Last year, DK and Locke were here, so the fans are kind of anticipating this new group. And I go out there, it looks like you guys have good chemistry with your spacing and timing or whatnot. Like, what are your thoughts?
Obviously, like I said, I've been in this game for 8 years now, and this is a room that is very unique to me, just because everybody does something different. There's not one guy in that room that's similar to another guy. And I think that's what makes, this so unique and special. And obviously Coop has been in this league, 9 years now, I believe. And he's one of those guys that's as smart as Einstein when it comes to football. And I think, obviously, we got Jackson there who's just, coming off of a crazy season last year, doing so many different things, and being able to move him inside and outside is huge. And then myself, being in this league as long as I have, doing what I do, it makes it for a unique system.
Regardless of the team, regardless of the playbook, just the actual move itself and kind of getting out here at practice.
It sucked, just because I'm a Florida boy, so coming all the way to the furthest part of the United States, it's a long way from home. But, the guys have welcomed me in with open arms. I haven't had any issues. I was able to find a place pretty quickly to settle in and move all my stuff, over. And then everyone has kind of just welcomed me. So, obviously moving from one side of the coast to the other side is always a tough task. But, I have family here now, and that's great.
You guys are always the easier group to evaluate when the pads aren't on, right? OTAs and minicamps. It's always hard to evaluate the big boys because obviously they can't get physical. But how do you anticipate? Well, obviously, you've been in the game for a while. How does practice change for you now that the pads are going to be on?
I mean, obviously you get a little more competitive, a little more aggressive. Those safeties that said they're going to make these tackles, and we're supposed to be crack blocking them and whatnot. So you get to see that a little bit more. You start doing one-on-ones, and a little more smack talk starts to fly out of DB's mouths and receivers' mouths. I think that's just more so what it is. But no matter if we got helmets on or shoulder pads on, the receivers are going to run all day. So it doesn't really change, on our end of how much we run. It's a little more competitive.
Anyone that you, on the other side, on the defense, start to get kind of a new appreciation for? Maybe even someone you knew before coming here that now that you're here playing opposite, watching them play?
I think being able to watch Spoon has been, obviously this is his third year in the league, and I've watched him from afar. One of my high school teammates, Rayshawn Jenkins, was here last year. He would always tell me about Spoon. And, so getting to watch him compete, and watch how he, approaches practice every day and how competitive he is, I can appreciate that, especially coming from a receiver to a DB.
I was surprised that first day I went out there and I saw you guys lining up everywhere. I mean, you talk about JSN moving. I saw Cup in the slide outside. I saw you in the slide outside. Is that a testament to how well you guys know the playbook already? Coaches just giving you a bunch of stuff, or is it just pretty basic day one stuff still?
Nah, I mean, we got pretty much 90% of our offense already in right now. So early on, and so we're just getting as many reps in and different looks as we can get. And obviously during the season you'll have different game plans for different teams. But for the basis of it, majority of our offense is in right now, and just giving guys the opportunity to move around and see what works and what doesn't.
We ask a question like this to a lot of guys as the season goes on about games that they're used to facing, and it's always a different answer. Some guys don't pay attention at all. They don't care at all. It's just week in, week out. Are you someone that kind of checks the schedule, maybe make plans with friends or look forward to certain games?
Not necessarily. Obviously it's a long season. 17 games is, crazy in itself. So you kind of just look up like, who are we playing this week? And who's guarding me? And that's kind of how I look at it. Obviously there's a couple games that you might circle because there might be a guy on the other side that or it's going to be better than the last guy you face. So you want to put on a good show against that guy. But other than that, no, not really.
I was undrafted, dude. I snuck through the back door, and I love trying to pick out a guy who has a chance to make the squad that no one really knows. Is there a young guy out there that you see that's impressing you right now?
Man, a lot of our young receivers are fighting, man, and just watching them compete, because it reminds me of myself. I was the last pick of the 5th round. Going out to Green Bay with, Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb being the 1 and 2 receivers. So being able to go in and become a starter, after like week 4, my rookie year, it was just kind of that same mindset, and just watching the young receivers just not complain about anything. Like whatever the opportunity gets called, they just get to roll, especially in the wide out room. I haven't seen any of those guys, no matter who gets thrown in there, each one of those guys wants to compete.
What was the moment that maybe it hit you like, oh, not only did I kind of earn this role, but I'm keeping it?
Well, the crazy part, I think, for me was, my first day in Green Bay. I walked into the cafeteria. Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, Clay Matthews, and Aaron Rodgers were all sitting at a table. And Aaron calls me over by name. And I'm like, there's no way Aaron Rodgers knows my name. I've never would have thought that he knew my name. And he called me over. He probably doesn't even remember this, but it was such a, huge moment for me, because he called me over and was like, hey, man, I like what you do. I think you can play. I think you're going to help this team. Just go out and be the best version of yourself. And that just stuck with me for like the rest of my career, because he has no idea how important that was, as a young guy coming into the league, just with my head spinning, don't even know if these people know who I am. And he called me over by my first name, and that was just like a crazy moment for me.
That's dope.
Have you tried to have those young moments where like, I'm going to just take an extra 2 minutes if this young receiver's having a question or if he wants to work on something?
All the time. I think that's something that, because I had arguably one of the best receivers, Devontae Adams, teaching me the game as a rookie. We've had our moments, and, good and bad. And now he's one of my closest friends that we still talk to this day. And so just having a guy like that teach me the game, on and off the field, why not be able to pass that down to someone else?
That's a great way to look at it. Cool story, too. He is new Seahawks wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and we were able to learn more about Clint, so thank you. You have to go. You have practice coming up, a very busy day. We're going to stay in segment, but it was really nice getting to know you more and talking to you.
Nice meeting you, man.
Our coverage of Seahawks training camp is brought to you by The Landing.